All right, guys, in about a minute, we're going to be up on Facebook Live, just giving you a heads up.
You know, Vanessa, I never knew that that slid. I've always just not turned the camera on.
Good afternoon. You're going to have to do without video. I have a blue screen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. How are you today, Renessa?
I'm well, Gloria. Hanging in there.
Good, good.
Hello, Director John. And all of you, Stephanie.
Good afternoon.
Hello. All right, so we've got email. Gregory. Carlos.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ED.
Good to see everyone.
Likewise.
You too.
Hi, Elaine.
How are you?
I'm doing swell. How about you, Bob, and I get a call maybe one day this evening to talk about the great news?
Okay, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry for the delay.
No, no problem.
Yeah, and we can also, before we get started, we can also talk about me coming to Hazleton maybe one Saturday out of the month to work with the young people.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, I can put that on my schedule. Maybe we can start in October.
Great, great. Like, we'll talk about it tonight. That's great.
Okay, great, great. Gregory Holtz, Carlos, it's good to have both of you here.
Thank you. Yes, most definitely. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, you guys look great. Mr. Green, as always, it's good to have you. And Renessa, it goes without saying, I know things are always going to turn out great whenever you're involved with something that we're doing here at the PHRC. So it's good to see you as well.
Thank you.
So Laura, before we get started, it was no problems getting on. I just hit the link, so
Yeah. You should be
excited
good to
about
go.
that.
That's always a plus, right? When you're on and your video works and your audio works, it's all good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is 101, so I'll go ahead and just get started with some housekeeping things, and then we'll get the program started. This is a panel discussion, so we ask that those of you who are on the panel do keep your video on. You can stay on mute when you're not speaking, but please remember to unmute yourselves when you are speaking. And the rest of you, if you can, you could be on camera, but stay muted if you would, so that we don't get interference during this discussion. And then at the end, we will have a chance for everyone to comment and pitch in. But Generally, the format will be a Q&A with the panelists. All right, so we have a pretty good group here. We'll go ahead and get started. So just thank you all for coming to PHRC's 20th anniversary remembrance of the 9/11 Al-Qaeda attacks. Now, we all have our own memories of this. Some of us may have suffered losses. We've all experienced it in our own ways. And today, we just wanted to bring everyone together to share our feelings, share our thoughts and experiences. So to open the program, I would like to introduce PHRC's Executive Director, Chad Dion Lassiter, who many of you know. In addition to his leadership role here at PHRC, he's an Ivy League scholar and was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and at Westchester University. He's a nationally recognized expert in race relations and actively writes and speaks on social justice issues. So, Edie Lassiter, would you like to start us off with some remarks?
Yes, thank you so much, Laura, and a public thank you for all of the panelists who will be participating today. We just thought it was very necessary to honor the sheroes and the heroes, the first responders, those who unfortunately died the noble death 20 years ago, those who survived. And I'm very mindful of that it wasn't just the Twin Towers and it wasn't just the Pentagon, but in Shanksville, PA, we had a plane that also went down. And our amazing director of communications brought to my attention a memorial. And from a PHRC perspective, the memorial that's in Shanksville, PA, she, the chairman of PHRC, and myself will be scheduling a visit to the memorial for any of the PHRC staff sometime in the spring. But I'm humbled and honored to be in this space today because this is a combination of individuals who support the PHRC in their respective roles as chairs of advisory councils. So I'm happy to have a dear sister of mine and ours, Elaine Curry, in this space, Ann Van Dyke, who's in this space, but also some new faces to PHRC, but not new to the arc of justice, and Carlos Alejandro, Gloria Richardson, Gregory Holtz, and all of us know of the work of Renessa Edwards, Damon Green, and other participants. And so I just want to briefly start by simply saying, so many of us were already experiencing an obesity of grief, and the enormity of the tragedy so traumatized many of us on that day. It's been stated historically and contemporarily that this is a day that will go down in infamy. Today, what we're going to hear is individuals who will share their reflections, their thoughts of where they were that day, what that day did to them, and how we can actually honor that particular day. We're appreciative for what looks like 61 people who are participating, and there are more that are on Facebook. And once again, we welcome everyone into this beloved community, this safe space, this brave space, to listen and to learn with our full spirits of our panelists. And so thanks again, Laura, for supporting this vision, and thanks for all the panelists who accepted our invitation. And once again, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Chad. So as Chad mentioned, I'm Laura Argenbright. I am the Director of Communications at PHRC, and I will be moderating the questions today. So as I said earlier, this is going to be in a Q&A format, and we'll be asking questions to specific people to answer. So at the end, you'll have a chance to kind of chime in and let us know your comments, but throughout the program, we'll be directing questions at specific people. So let me now introduce the panelists. First, we have Carlos Alejandre. He's a PHRC investigator from Pittsburgh. Colleen Kelly, she's a PHRC investigator from Harrisburg. Damon Green is a PHRC investigator from Philadelphia. Elaine Madden Curry, she is one of our colleagues who is a co-founder of the Hazleton Integration Project, founding member of the advocacy group of concerned parents of the Hazleton area, and chairwoman of the Hazleton Advisory Council to the PHRC. Thank you, Elaine, for being here today. We have Gloria Richardson, who is a PHRC investigator from Harrisburg. Gregory Holtz, who is a PHRC investigator from the Pittsburgh office. Kurt Jung, who is our Director of Enforcement and works out of the central office in Harrisburg. And Renessa Edwards, who is a PHRC supervisor out of the Philadelphia regional office. Now, we were to have Ann Van Dyke with us today, who is a dear colleague based in Harrisburg. She's a former PHRC investigator. She was a very active activist involved in the Community Responders Network, Heeding God's Call to End Gun Violence, the Common Ground Community Center, Gather the Spirit for Justice, and a Criminal Justice Community Relations Task Force in Harrisburg. She unfortunately just within the last hour had to cancel and was not able to join us today, but Renessa Edwards will share some of her comments that she sent in when we get to her time. So we wish she were with us. And Commissioner Yanks, Debbie, has she joined us? I did not see her when we started.
I just double checked. I don't see her on the list.
Okay, and that wasn't her calling in?
No.
All right, our Director Raquel, or Dr. Raquel Yanks, the Vice Chair of our PHRC Commission, may or may not be joining us, but she was also had accepted on the panel. So hopefully she'll be able to join us at some point today. Okay, so with that, we'll start into the questions. So this first question, we're going to put out to Carlos, Damon, Gloria, and Elaine. And we'll start with Carlos. Carlos, where were you on 9/11 and what was your initial reaction?
On 9/11, I was in my last year of high school in York, Pennsylvania. It was Central York High School, which is actually the same high school that our Lieutenant Governor, John Fetterman, graduated from. And I distinctly remember I was in AP History class taught by Mr. Earhart. And my initial reaction was just absolute shock. We had to turn on the TV immediately, and the whole class just sat in silence and watched the footage. It looked like a movie. And for me personally, as an immigrant who's from Taiwan, seeing something like this was something I would have never imagined seeing happen to a country like the United States. So I just remember for the rest of the day, we didn't have school. We didn't change classes. Everybody just stayed put in whatever class they were in. And for an entire day, we just sat and watched and tried our best to process what was going on. Those of us that had relatives or friends living in New York, we just spent the day panicked, anxious, worried, hoping that they'll be okay. And also just wondering what was going to be next for this country, like what was going to be happening to any of us. And just feeling scared, honestly.
Okay. Damon?
Yes, during that day of 9/11, I was a student down here in Philadelphia at Temple University. Very early in the morning, a great deal of the students, usually class that doesn't start till 9:40. If some classes start even earlier. But the feeling that I remember feeling was a feeling of anxiety over the uncertainty. Usually when things have happened in my life, you know, I'll say to myself, I'll get through it. But because this initial shock was something that I never experienced before, seeing buildings being crashed with planes, it kind of overwhelmed me because it was like being in a war zone, but never being in a war. You know, it was the personal feeling of being attacked and not knowing how to respond to that or how you can protect yourself. So they closed school that day, but I still had to go to campus anyway to take care of some minor work. And there was just a silence at the campus, like a somber note of uncertainty. And just the effects of it still affect me to this day, you know, when I look back on that memory of what happened at this school day.
Oh, thank you, both Carlos and Damon, for sharing that. Gloria, can you share with us where you were on 9/11 and what your reaction was?
Yes, I was in my office in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was a fairly young manager. And I remember sitting there and one of my employees knocking on the door and saying, "Come quick, come quick." And the entire office huddled into a conference room to watch TV, to see this. And I will mirror what Carlos said. It was like watching a movie, because in your mind, you never think something is going to happen like this. So, and seeing it play out was like being in a movie. I just remember everyone being shocked and stunned. I remember my secretary having an emotional breakdown. People were sitting, crying, praying, huddled together, and this secretary got missing. And I distinctly remember this because we tried to find her, and we found her huddled in the female bathroom. We all decided to evacuate the office because there became a concern about being in high-rise buildings. And we were in a high-rise building, so it was like, let's send everybody home. So we did. We sent everybody home, and one of us had to agree in management to take the secretary home. She was so overcome she could not drive. So one of us decided to take her home. I remember going on the highway, trying to travel home, and like Damon expressed, the overwhelming, just quiet and numbness. No one was filtering through traffic. No one was honking horns. It was just a silence that you can't really describe. I'm certain people were in their cars listening to radios and doing whatever, but no one was trying to get over or to speed past. It was just a steady trickle of, I drove 25 miles, so that steady trickle of that 25 miles. Got home, my husband is military, just getting ready to send him off, not knowing what was going to occur from there. That's what I can recall from that day, and then being glued back to the TV, just trying to figure out what was going on and what had happened.
Oh, thank you. And Elaine, same question. If you could share with us where you were on 9/11 and what was your initial reaction?
Well, I was at work, and my husband called me and said, "Oh, a plane has crashed into one of the towers in New York." And at first he said, "Oh, it had to be human error, mechanical error." And I was on my way. I was a medical librarian at the time, and I was walking into a clinical department, and everyone was standing in front of a television set. And I arrived just in time to see the second plane hit the tower. And then I knew instantly that it was intentional. It wasn't a human error. It wasn't a mechanical error. Someone set out to harm innocent people. And I also thought, my goodness, they're not trying to harm one or two people. They are trying to harm thousands of innocent people, thinking of all those thousands of people, thinking it was an ordinary day in their lives, getting up in the morning and not really paying attention, getting up and just going to work, thinking it was another day. And then all of a sudden, within a matter of moments, they had to face that they were going to die. And they didn't perhaps hug someone on their way out. They didn't say goodbye to someone. Maybe they were in a hurry. And I just thought of all those lives affected and facing their death when they thought they were going to work. And I remember seeing the people jumping out of buildings and being so horrified, thinking, that they had to choose such a horrible ending because there was no way out. And it just shook me. I thought, you know, the United States, we always felt we were invincible. We saw we weren't invincible at that moment. We saw that whomever, and I didn't know at the time who wanted to harm us, but who wanted to harm endless people that were innocent, that they did not know, that they didn't know what their lives were. And they just randomly wanted to kill people.
Wow.
It was horrifying. And at that time, I didn't know who was behind it, but I just thought such a blatant disregard for human life. It was horrible. I still, to this day, when I think about it, I can hardly think about it. And I can hardly think of, we might honor, we honor 9/11 one day a year, but the 3,000 families, the 3,000 people killed, the 6,000 people injured, those people remember 9/11 on a regular basis, and their grief lives within them.
Thank you, all of you, for starting us off with such heartfelt expression. This is something that has affected us all the same, but yet differently for sure. So the next question is for Colleen, Kurt, and Gregory. So how would you situate the events of 9/11 for us in a historical context? And we'll start with Colleen.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
This is a hard subject for me, especially with what's happening with Afghanistan right now. I shared with my supervisor how what was happening was making me feel. And of course, so close to the anniversary of 9/11. I guess I want to start with there, in my opinion, there's an America before 9/11 and there's an America after 9/11. So many things changed for all of us, regardless if we were first responders or military or family members of those who were lost or injured, or 20 years later feeling the effects health-wise. Biggest thing for me, being in the military, is we began the war on terror. The global war on terror started with 9/11. I think that there's so many, I guess, I don't know how to describe, just the scale of what it created. The increase in our military, the increase in surveillance on American people with the Patriot Act. The TSA was created, so that affected air travel. You could look at anti-Muslim violence or rhetoric in 2000 versus 2001 after September 11th. There was an increase. It went from 12 to 93 assaults, according to FBI stats. I also feel like we're in an endless war on terror. I don't think that there's ever going to be an aspect where we are not actively hunting people that wish to do us harm. So that's my take.
Thank you. Kurt? Director Jung?
Thank you, Laura. Yes, I saw this as a change, a major change in the history of our country. It's the first time we've ever been attacked on American soil. I never thought that a war it would come this close to home. That day, being in Philadelphia, I was working for the EOC at the time, and there was we were here watching it. It was New York was hit. We were getting it from Shanksville, PA, and then also the Pentagon. So we were in the center of it. Philadelphians, we were in the center of all this. Sort of scary. So it did, from a historical point of view, we never had that happen to us. It was actually quite scary for me to be there. We ushered out of the building. I was in the Bourse building with them to be saying that you were next to the Independence Hall. You need to get out of here right now, because we didn't know if there were any more planes. We didn't know. So it sort of made us all uneasy. So it was before 9/11. I thought we were real secure. You know, everything was great. I thought I was going to my cushy job and going to Philadelphia. And now I'm on edge, finding out the next week. But the other thing that happened in the civil rights world, it changed a lot. I was a few weeks later, someone knocks on my door. Said, go look out at the lobby. I was in the EOC. Just go look at the outside of the lobby. So I walked outside the lobby. There's all these people in burqas, in turbans. I mean, there were Pakistanis, there were Sikhs, there were Muslims. There are all these different people who were all terminated from their positions because everyone was afraid to work with them. I said, wow. And then when you look at their complaints, you find out they're like normal Americans, everyday Americans like you and me. And that was sort of scary, that one event like that you could lose your job over, and people didn't care. And it seemed that workers, and when you hear the stories, it seemed that workers were going along with it in companies. You know, I just found that to be so horrifying that here we're in the civil rights world. We would think that wouldn't happen. We would all come together and support each other, and yet I was watching people, hearing their stories about how they're being harassed at work, how they've been fired from their job because people don't feel comfortable with them, how they couldn't get rehired because people didn't trust them. It was really it changed the whole world, and I thought we were coming, being back from the civil rights movement, we were moving forward. It was the same year that I got married. Okay, 3 weeks I got married after 9/11, the 29th of September, and half my guests didn't even come because they didn't want to fly. And I was flying out on my honeymoon 3 weeks later to go out to Italy, and they're dropping bombs on Afghanistan the same day. But as everyone got on that plane, we all looked around that plane, and everyone was looking at each individual person who was on that plane. It was amazing that all of a sudden there's this inordinate fear that someone was going to be on there that would do something. So from a historical point of view, it's changed every one of our lives, because now it's created a new narrative of discrimination that we never seen before. And it just shows how fragile our society is, and how one event could turn people against each other. It doesn't matter, and over this inordinate fear. So I'm sure we're still living with it too, as you see in today's world. So it's sort of worrisome to me, but I'm glad I'm at the PHRC to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Thank you, Director Jung. Gregory, could you share your thoughts with us on how you would situate the events of 9/11 in a historical context?
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to kind of mirror what most of the panelists said today, that in America, we saw that we are not as invincible as we thought we were. We are not as impervious. And also, I like to reflect on the fact that we are not as unified as we thought. This attack brought a false sense of unity, where you had people gathering together. And I remember specifically that it felt like the week or so after that attack that everyone was just rallying under the banner of USA, USA. But at the same time, you saw individuals, our Muslim brothers and sisters, getting attacked. I think the statistics were already brought up. And so instead of being unified under one banner, we became unified to attack another group of people, which is not what we're supposed to be doing. We acted out of fear. And I like to think about the war on terrorism and the fact that the war on terrorism wasn't specifically targeted at a group, it was just kind of random fire. So no matter where the terrorist was, we're hitting that country. I kind of bring that back to what happened in America, where we associated a group of people with terrorists. And that's not what we should be doing. I think about the fact that we had the racial discrimination. I think about all the job loss that happened in New York. I think there's statistics saying that it was like millions of dollars lost, $6 million lost. There was $6 million in cleanup that really affected the economy. So not only did this affect our standards of we can't be beat, but this has affected the standards of our thought of like we are just a prosperous country where we could be hit and we could be hit hard. And so I think about that. I think about the influx of people who joined the military. My wife particularly was one of them. And I'll talk about that later. That we felt we needed to defend our country. We felt the need to get in there and really help this fight on terrorism. But we didn't really understand what the fight on terrorism was about. And so for me, historically, it's an event that signified fear. It's an event that signified misunderstanding and confusion. And that's what I got from it.
Thank you. So our next question deals with first responders, which since 9/11 has become a household term. Did you know anyone in 9/11 who lost their lives or served as a first responder during 9/11? And if so, what was truly unique about them? And Gregory, we're going to go just right back to you on this one if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you, Laura.
Able.
Yes. So I do not know anyone particularly who was a firefighter or a police officer. However, I have two members of my family who were directly impacted by 9/11. First was my brother. At the time, he was actually living in Manhattan. He was actually supposed to be in the World Trade Center for a job that he was doing. But for whatever reason, he did not go there, which saved his life. And I remember him calling my parents at the time saying how frantic it was in New York. But secondly, my wife was affected in the fact that she wasn't there, but she was called to the military because 9/11 happened. She felt that it was an inspiration by God, that she was being led to join the military. So that event directly affected her. And as I was saying before, that affected people that were going into the military that wanted to fight for our country. But at the same time, we had people who go over and fight. And then when they came back over, our veterans, they weren't properly equipped to come back to society. They learned skills and trades that weren't applicable to both sets. And because they weren't applicable to both sets, they were disenfranchised here. You can look at the homeless population in Pittsburgh is rather large. A lot of them are veterans. We have veteran organizations in Pittsburgh that try to help these people out. And as I was talking to my wife, she talked about the fact that a lot of veterans had to become entrepreneurs because their skills weren't applicable. And so when I think of people who are directly affected, I think about our military and about honoring them.
Thank you. So, Ronessa, did you know anyone who lost their life or served as a first responder during 9/11?
No, I did not.
Did you have any other thoughts on the first responders or?
Well, I watched a lot of documentaries about 9/11, and my heart goes out to the first responders who are developing, like Colleen said, black lung and all of these things years later. Those people who were never found, their families, some of them still just, unable to be located. And I do have a cousin that is a tax collector for New York, and he was supposed to be in one of the towers and didn't report to work either. So just like Gregory, that saved his life. I think he was actually just running late, and on the way there, he turned right back around,
Wow.
So, but no, I don't know any first responders or anyone that passed away.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Laura. I don't know anyone who served as first responder, but a friend of mine, she did lose her uncle who was in the towers. And what's unique about her, my friend, is we end up both being students at Penn State York. And to echo what Gregory said earlier about a false sense of unity, living in York at a time and attending Penn State York, her and I unfortunately witnessed what he spoke about, where following the events, you saw people rallying USA, USA, like during the Olympics. But really, especially for York, PA, it was a rallying cry for a lot of people to attack our Muslim brothers and sisters. So going back to my friend, what was unique about her is even though she was immediately impacted because of the loss of her uncle in the towers, I never saw her exhibit any of those negative traits that I just spoke about. In fact, her and I were both line ambassadors, and the campus where we were, Penn State York, declared itself as a sanctuary in York, Pennsylvania, for anyone that felt unsafe, not just our Muslim brothers and sisters, but anyone at all. So her and I felt an immense sense of pride about that we as a school in that difficult time and a very difficult town was able to come together and try to get rid of the negativity that came with this already horrible event, to try to protect the Muslim people in our own community.
Wow, it's very powerful. Thank you. So the next question was for Raquel and Andy Lane, but we're going to ask Elaine to share her thoughts on this, and also Renessa has volunteered to share comments that Anne had sent in to us. So the question is, did the visual of the airplanes crashing into the Twin Towers impact you at all? And if so, how? Elaine, we'll go to you.
You're on mute.
Elaine, are you on mute?
Is that good?
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. I think when we think of 9/11, it's in our collective memory. At any moment, we could conjure up what happened that day. We could, again, in our mind's eye, see those planes crashing into the towers, seeing those people falling out of buildings. So I think that it's going to be with us, those of us that saw it happening or can relive it through videos or whatever. I think it lives on in your memory. And I think it was a moment in time when we could have chosen to refocus our efforts to promote cooperation and peace throughout the region. And instead, we chose war. So when I think of all of the people that died as a result of 9/11, we also have to add the thousands and thousands of people that have died over time, with us having the war in Iraq, us having the war in Afghanistan. I recently read an article where someone wrote and said the Americans were so impressed. We wanted so much to have democracy in other places, and we wanted to save other people. But in Afghanistan, the women and the children that we wanted to save oftentimes were killed as a result of our efforts. So I think the United States now needs to step back and think, did we choose the right course after 9/11? Most of the world was in sympathy with us and was horrified by what happened. But instead, we chose a vindictive course of having a war. And 20 years later, now we look at it and we see, what have we accomplished? What has been the outcome of us? We saw this horrific taking of lives, and our response was basically to take more lives. So those are the kinds of things I think of when I think of 9/11. And again, you can't help but think of all the survivors, of all the families that were affected, not only with 9/11, but were affected with the wars that we were responsible for. And I was reading an article the other day, and I didn't realize 100 children were born rather after their fathers were killed on 9/11. And the article started out by saying these children, that they have photos, but no photos with them with their fathers. They have grief, but they have no memories. So I think the United States needs to reflect now on what has happened since 9/11, what has happened during and now, 20 years later. I think we need to reflect on who are we and what have we become?
Well, those are some really great questions all throughout. Renessa, would you mind sharing some of the responses that Anne had sent?
Sure. Anne stated that the following are her reactions when she saw the towers go down. She felt a dismay for the people in the towers. She was a resident of Harrisburg and felt fear, asking, where's Harrisburg next? And she writes, assumption that the motivation was similar to the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma in '95 by white supremacists. 9/11 was a similar motivation, but from a different group. The country's response was very different. However, the response to the '95 bombing was not to blame race or religion. At the time, Timothy McVeigh was white and schooled in the Aryan Nation and Christian identity movement. So I guess she's referring to just the way that the bombings was blamed. Similar acts, but it went a very different way.
Thank you. So over the past week, we've all heard about and learned of amazing acts of heroism on that fateful day. We're just wondering what acts of heroism come to mind for you. And this will start with Gloria.
Okay. When I think of that, I think of a saying that I saw, and it said that 2,996 people went to sleep that night before, thinking that we'll just get up in the morning and we'll go on to our jobs to do what we needed to do. Those included 343 firefighters, 60 police officers, and just 2,606 regular Americans just going to their jobs or taking a flight to go somewhere, including women, children, fathers, mothers, cousins, brothers, sisters. So I think of their heroism on that day, not expecting this to happen to them, and also some of those firefighters and first responders of just trying to react to this tremendous event. I'm going to take it a step further from what we've seen and what we've talked about. I think it also needs to be pointed out not only to the military families and stuff afterwards, but also denote that some of those military families were people who were Muslims or Sikhs that sought out the military to show how patriotic they were and how much they support this country. They tried to join the military and go forward to show we're Americans too, and we want to defend this country. And even though people have turned against us. So I want to point out their heroism in joining the military and taking part in this fight.
Thank you. Great points. And Dr. Jung, can you share with us your thoughts?
Well, there's two sets of heroes that come to mind. The first one's come to mind. It's the fact that I saw footage of the firemen who were responding to this when the buildings were still up, and there were the firemen, they didn't think twice about running into that building to go try to save as many people as they possibly can. They ran right in, and they probably didn't come out. That was a true act of heroism, and it was a true act of it was just, they didn't think about themselves. They selfless. They thought about the people who they were trying to help, and those stories like that really touched me, because I think that's a lot of us, the first thing we think about ourselves. it was the opposite. They were thinking about the others that were in there. And the other set of heroes that I heard, I had a brother actually that was up there who was on his way to work, and he just happened to go late in that day. It was a day where he just got up late. He forgot his cell phone of all things, and he got up late, and he got off. He was on the path to go towards the World Trade Center from New Jersey, and one of the planes had hit, and they had stopped all the traffic from going in, and he had to get off at Exchange Place and to walk, and he had to walk at the stop before. And when he got out, he was pushed down below because they knew that the towers had collapsed. And he was there all day without a phone, and we didn't know what happened to him. And so finally he did call on someone else's phone and let us know he's okay. But when he got up, they finally let them out from underneath. He ended up walking through 3 foot of ash and back towards the ferry to try to get back over to New Jersey so he can have someone pick him up. But in that time period of walking through, he said there's people covered in ash, and then people in New York ran out with water. They ran out with food. They ran out with everything. That it didn't matter. They just opened up the stores, and people were just taking just to get people to the getting a cloth over their face, helping people out, getting people who are having trouble breathing, getting them the first aid that they needed. So that was, to me, when I saw this footage, I was really impressed that people were not thinking about, oh, this is my water, this is my, they just ran into their stores and started just bringing it all out so that people would clean off their hands, clean off their face, being able to go, and they were directing people to get to certain places away from where they were, but the whole place was covered in ash, and people were having difficulties breathing. So those are the heroes that I was looking at. And then the third set I didn't think of until Gloria mentioned is the military. And I know people who've been in, their family members who've been in Afghanistan, who've served the people. And that's just, to me, they are true heroes. I mean, that's an act, and the people who've lost their lives in that, amazing. So those are the positive stories that come out of this, how people came together. And I'm happy as a country that we can do that.
Thank you. That makes me think of this year. I don't remember hearing it in other words, but there seemed to be people starting a conversation about let's remember 9/12 and how people came together, not just 9/11, but 9/12 when everyone did step up and help and come together. Okay, so the next question, we're going to start with Damon. Damon, when you learned that there was an airplane that went down in Western Pennsylvania, what were you thinking?
Well, I was already at a level of anxiety at the time because of the planes that hit New York. We lived in Philadelphia, and due to the great amount of historical connections that we have here in Philadelphia, I thought Philadelphia was going to be the next city that was going to be attacked. So when I learned of what happened in Western Pennsylvania, it definitely raised my height of fear. However, many years after that incident had occurred, when you hear about the courage of those individuals that was on United Flight 93, the courage and despite the fear they might have had in trying to regain control of that plane, I think about how I would have acted in that instance and what I've had the courage to try to fight back. And I think most individuals would, not just to preserve their own life, but also to possibly preserve the lives of others. So the lesson that I learned from that is just, the courage of those individuals to stand up. We have many heroes out here, those first responders, those that served in the military. But we also got to remember those individuals that were on that flight were just regular everyday people, just catching a plane ride to some destination. And they decided to fight back, to save the lives of themselves and save the lives of others. So, that's the enduring thought that I remember from what happened out there in Western Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Renessa, how about you? When you learned that there was an airplane that went down in, right here in Western Pennsylvania, what were you thinking?
Well, I was at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown campus
Wow.
on Tuesday. So that's half an hour from Schwenksville. So you have a bunch of college kids, phones weren't working. We see the planes hit, and now there was a plane coming to us. That was the narrative. And literally, you see on TV when people are running like this, the campus, kids were just running like this. And the professors had to come out and stop everyone. People wanted to leave and go home. I was a little too far, but I mean, no one could reach anyone, and we were next. That was what was going on. So we literally huddled, cried, prayed, and it was just the fear was it's indescribable. It reached a level I've never experienced since then, and I'm glad that I've never experienced that. But imagine that, Schwenksville was 30 minutes away, and so we were being told the plane's coming here. It doesn't make sense when you think about it. What's, UPJ is a small college, but that's what we were thinking. So that's when we learned about United 93, and later we learned that they took the hijackers, and we prayed for them and went out to the memorial. But that day, when we knew that plane was coming, oh man, it was very bad, very bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to break protocol here, and I think ED Lassiter probably realized I would need to do this, but I don't know if you know, I live about 10 minutes from UPJ. Actually, my son just started there this semester. And you're the first person I've heard explain that experience on campus. We hear about the Shanksville stories all the time, but I really appreciate you sharing that. I didn't have that visual, and honestly, we were out of town that week, that day, but I really appreciate you sharing that. And it was very scary to know that it was so close by, and it's a different experience living so close to that memorial even now, every year, and it's real. It never goes away here. People talk about it all the time. So thank you, and sorry for jumping in. Colleen, will you share your feelings on this?
I guess if you go by the timeline of that day, the question in my mind was, what's next? Any person that was watching the news develop, and the time between those four events with each plane hitting, whether it was the two in New York, the Pentagon, and then of course in Shanksville in Pennsylvania, the only thing you can think of is what's next. Within hours, my mother received a call. She was being deployed. Hours. My husband being deployed. It's just thinking about the families of the people that were lost, the people experiencing it, and having to watch loved ones prepare a bag to leave, and not knowing what was going to happen. That was the biggest thing for me. And try to keep it in perspective. I do want to say that this is not actually the first time that America has been attacked. We can look back to Pearl Harbor and the start of World War II. December 7th, 1941, we were attacked, and we lost many people on that day. I think that we've learned from that time, and also we keep repeating some of the mistakes in how we respond. So that's what I have to say.
Wow, thank you. It's a lot. Okay, so now we're down to our closing question, and we're going to invite all of the panelists to weigh in on this, and then we will open the chat for some discussion and some open discussion. So as we continue to remember, and as we forever state, never forget, what lasting words do you want to leave with us? And let's start with Carlos.
Thank you, Laura. So to piggyback on what Colleen brought up about Pearl Harbor, what I want to bring up here is when I think of the phrase never forget, I think of the second thing I think of besides what we're already thinking about the attack itself is we need to never forget that there's no such thing as a bad race or bad nationality. We have bad individuals of a certain race or a certain nationality, but that never equates to entire race or entire nationality being bad. And I bring up Pearl Harbor because, you know, in the Western Hemisphere, when you bring up World War II, most people think of Nazi Germany as the main bad actor, but coming from Taiwan, coming from Asia, we think of Japan running their own blitzkrieg through all of Asia, you know, taking over Taiwan, taking over China, taking over Korea. So personally, I grew up in a household where my own parents would tell me growing up, oh, you can't trust the Japanese. Can't forget what they did to us in World War II. Obviously, that's a bunch of hooey. And thinking about 9/11 and how our Muslim brothers and sisters were treated, thinking about innocent individuals such as Muhammadu Salahi, who was imprisoned for no reason, except for the fact that he happened to be Muslim, was never charged and was only recently released. And unfortunately, speaking as a minority, speaking as a Chinese man, I do have to give our country a failing grade at the moment. Because, for example, with COVID, just because I happen to be Chinese doesn't mean I'm a walking petri dish of viruses that's going to affect you. But we still see that in 2021. So that's my lasting parting word, is that there's never a bad race or bad nationality, just bad individuals, and we can never forget that.
Wow, thank you. All right, Damon, would you like to share your thoughts?
I believe when it comes to never forget, one of the many lessons that we can take from the tragedy of 9/11 is the shared sacrifice that is needed. During that time period, the Patriarch was signed, changed the way we took flights. So it took a shared sacrifice among everyone to undertake and play our role in this new shaped society. Likewise, today, I believe in order to honor the people that sacrificed their lives and lost their lives, and subsequently those individuals that lost their lives during the wars, is that we, number one, truly honor our veterans and support them, just not have it be lip service, but also dealing with the crisis of our times now, which is the COVID-19 pandemic, and how that takes a shared sacrifice from everyone, and how that takes everyone coming together so that we can eradicate this disease. After 9/11, yes, there was a false sense of patriotism, but there were times where people did have a shared sense of sacrifice, you know, and we've seen it in other times. We've seen it in World War II, where everyone sacrificed, particularly African Americans who went off to war to fight with nothing but an extended long-term promise of having shared and equal rights. So I just think the greatest lesson that we can take from this tragedy is a shared sacrifice and the common greater good for all humanity. You know, we're all on this planet for a very short time. So we have the opportunity to make it better for each and every one of us. Then we should take that opportunity starting today.
Beautiful, thank you. Gloria, do you have some words for us?
Yes. When I think about not forgetting, I share in what the panelists have said. I see it from in my lifetime. I see this is like that momentous event that I feel like the word patriotism got stolen and re-upped and resculptured to something in some people's mind that made it negative in a sense. Ruling other people are more patriotic than others, and using that patriotism to be against people of faiths and religions and skin color. And I feel like that it was probably always there. It was maybe under the surface, but it really came to light at that point. It was such a focus, and that's what I can remember. And I would wish that in our country, our democracy is young. It's not as old as we think it is. We're not an old country, and the false patriotism rings true when you see that it was one incident enough to turn someone that they would target or terrorize a people, loss of job, brutalizing people. I would hope that we would grow as a people and as a country, that we do not go back into that, and that we would grow to be better, that we are growing our democracy to go forward and be stronger and better than that is what I would hope. And that we forget from them. Too many people gave their lives for us to continue on. And one way we can honor them is to grow and be better.
Wow,
So.
thank you. Okay, Ms. Elaine, do you have some thoughts to leave us?
Well, I agree with what everyone is saying. I think that we must never forget. We need to remember the heroism that 9/11 showed us, the people that sacrificed their own lives to help their fellow man. So we must emphasize the good, but we can't turn our backs on 20 years. We should be a little better. We see, right after 9/11, there was a coming together of the country, a sense of humanity that we shared. But 20 years later, we're more polarized than we ever were. We seem a bit more racist than we ever were, even though we've always been. But it just seems like everything is getting magnified. In the midst of a pandemic, we're anti-science over getting vaccinated. We see different parts of the nation, different states restricting rights. We're restricting voting rights. We're restricting women's right to choose. We need to be better than that. We need to remember, yes, let's remember 9/11. Let's remember the people who went to help their neighbors that they didn't know, went to save lives. But we are so polarized. We need to do better. So can we say we're a better nation in these last 20 years? I'm afraid not, but it doesn't mean we can't begin to go forward in a new direction. We need to be better. We need to be better. And we need to be, not, the thing that affects me is right now we're as extreme as some of the extremists that we talk about, and we say, oh, look at this country, look at them there, they have no rights. But then we can't be as extreme as they are. And I think right now we are seeing extremism in our country, and we need to be better. We can be better.
Love the message. Thank you. Colleen, would like to come to you next.
Oh boy. So many things I can say, and I feel I want to give thank you to my supervisor, Chelsea Palish, for listening to me a couple weeks ago when I was really going through it, to know how to feel about what I was seeing on the news. So thank you, Chelsea. In the last 20 years, being in the military, those of you that don't know, I've only been out of the military for 2 years. And those 2 years I've been with the PHRC. So in that time frame, I have gone to 14 different deployments. 14. I have lost friends that I have served with. I've been subject to horrible conditions and atmospheres and experiences that I don't wish on anyone. I also have experienced some of the greatest things that I will never forget. My time in Afghanistan, I was fortunate enough, I was sent there to train Afghan police forces, which is different enough when you're training men. They look at you funny as you're trying to perform instruction. They've never had a female instructor before. But I was fortunate enough that I could also teach women how to be police officers. And although there was a language barrier, the bonds that were developed were amazing to me. I had a very old iPad with me, and I would Skype home to my husband, and I would have these women sitting behind me because I had to live with them. We had these wooden barracks, and I was living with these women. All they knew how to say in English was hi, and they would stand behind me and wave at my husband on the Skype and keep saying hi, and the biggest smiles on their face. I felt like I was bringing part of America, part of me to this country. They loved us being there. I had experiences with male instructors that had fought back, that they were in the police force before we came. They were there, you know, from 96 to 2001 when the Taliban were in charge. And to have a communication with this male instructor through the interpreter about how he defied the Taliban because he wanted his daughters to go to school. And they wanted him to kneel in front of them. And he refused. So they shot him in the knee. And he still refused to give in to what they wanted. So they shot him through the shoulder, and it went out through his left lung. The man survived and was part of the instructor cadre that I got to work with when I was in Herat in Afghanistan, teaching female police officers how to drive. And by our experiences and what had happened to us, our trauma that we went through, him and I bonded through the interpreter and our experiences. I never wish for anything to happen on another country who has been subject to terrorism. It's a frightening, anxious time, whether in Europe or in our country for 9/11. I'm sure they were extremely afraid during Pearl Harbor. But I think we did some good. I think I really appreciate the amount of time I've been to Iraq, I've been to Syria, I've been to Afghanistan, Djibouti, Somalia. We could name a couple, tens of more places I've been in this world to do the work of the United States military. I'm proud of my service. I don't always agree with whatever the commander-in-chief is, whatever administration it is. I've been through several. But I'm proud for what I do. I'm proud of the friends that I developed, because when you go through things like this, you don't see color, you don't see race, you don't see nationality, you don't see any of this. And if so many people could, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. If so many people could see the bonds that we developed and reacted in that manner to your civilian life, this world would be so much better, because we wouldn't care about any protected class, because we wouldn't have to worry about a protected class. We would base you on the character of your skin, or base you on your character of your person. One more thing before I leave it. I'm sorry, everyone.
It's fine.
I lost 2 friends on my first 2 deployments to Iraq. Tech Sergeant Bill Jefferson, 21st Special Tactics Squadron at Pope Air Base in North Carolina. And my next deployment to Iraq, Corporal Ryan McGee, 3rd 75th Ranger Battalion. He was 21. We're not fighting a culture of people. We're fighting people that want to warp that culture and that religion. Because I have plenty of friends. I am still in touch with my interpreters. And I want us to come together. I want us to feel in a way where we can all be bonded. We know the difference between good and bad. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, Colleen, thank you so much. First of all, on behalf of all of us, thank you for your service and thank you for your sacrifice. And thank you for serving the residents of PA through PHRC now, you know, as a civilian, but we really appreciate you.
Thank you. This week, the last couple of weeks have been hard, and I've talked with Chelsea about how to feel and how to handle it. And it's a lot of soul searching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Can
want
only
anything to
imagine.
feel like it was futile or in vain. And for the lives of the friends and people, I'm concerned of the women that I left I've left behind. I couldn't bring them home, but are they okay?
Mm.
Are they okay? Are they some of the women that we've seen on the news getting beaten by the Taliban? It stresses me. I hope they're okay. I hope the people that help me, the interpreters that help me, I hope they're okay.
Yeah. Mm. Well, we're all here for you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Director John, do you want to share your thoughts?
Sure, I'll be short. Okay. One of the things I would hope from 9/11 that we would all focus on, there was a day of evil, definitely a day of evil, but there was also a day of good that happened, and that we would, when we say we never forget, that we would not focus on the evil that happened, but we never forget the good things that happened. People, firemen risking their lives, people who were helping others, and the people who did lose their lives. What good people they were. I would like to focus on that, because I think that with that message, if everyone would focus on the good of others, and that we can concentrate on creating this beloved community, we'd be moved past this. Okay, but the evil that happened, it lived only in that moment, in that second. But the good that happened, including all the things that Colleen just said, all the soldiers, the people that shared the humanity, that lives on, and that lives on, being passed on generation to generation to generation. And I hope that 9/11 would be remembered more for that than for what the evil deed of what the terrorists did.
Thank you. Thank you. Renessa, let's go over to you.
Laura, I'll be brief as well. What I think of when I say never forget can be considered a cliche, but live each day like it's your last. for many reasons. Obviously, the victims of 9/11 didn't know that it was their last day. The heroes didn't know, but they lived their day as if it was. They made an impact. The service persons, Colleen, thank you so much for your service and for sharing your story and your experiences. They lived every day like if it's their last. Anything can happen, but if you have that impact and you're living for humanity, you'll be remembered. You will not be forgotten. And so when I hear never forget, that's what I think of is have that impact on humanity, live your life like if it's your last, and leave your legacy on this earth, every day. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And Gregory, throw it out to Pittsburgh for our last comment from the panelists.
Thank you. It has just been a joy and a pleasure to really be involved with this panel. So when I think about never forget, I think about never forget the cry for justice. What we just heard Colleen express was a cry for justice. What we've been talking about right now has been a cry for justice. It is identifying what is evil and what is good. And what is good is unity. We had unity in a sense, but it was misdirected. And so really, I want us to remember that as we unite for what is good, and when we unite to help people, and when we unite to bring justice, that is what brings upon the blessed community or the beloved community. That is the time when we really strengthen ourselves. And we can do that. We've done that before. We've done it in the past. Look at BLM. Look at all the things that have been occurring over the last years. We can unite as one people and put aside our differences, put aside our skin color, put aside our gender, put aside whatever it is. But when we realize that we are just all human, that is the noun. Everything else is a pronoun. When we recognize that we are just one people, that is when we can truly move. And that's when we can become united. That's when we become a better people. And I want everyone to remember that there is a word that says to learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and please the widow's cause. If we can learn how to do those principles, if we can learn how to do that, then that is really when we will have justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Great closing. And yes, Edie Lassiter, I wasn't going to let you off the hook.
I wanted to hold back my tears because certain members of senior management have been chiding me in a good way about the number of times I've been crying over the past couple of weeks. But let me just simply say that we are better as a commission because of some of the voices that we've heard today. We are going to be better as a commission when we take all of the themes of what everyone was saying, our director of enforcement talking about the beloved community, the eloquent quote that Gregory just left, the way that Carlos situated his identity, the things that Renessa and Laura talked about when here, this is not orchestrated. Neither one of them knew that they were in the same catchment area, And when we look at what Colleen has said, now, in summary, these are people that come to PHRC. We don't know if they served over in Iraq, if they served over in Afghanistan. And so we should be treating them with the humanity that we're speaking about right here on this platform. We should see them as individuals who may be suffering from PTSD, may be homeless because of the war, may be coming to us because they want us to investigate their case in a timely fashion. And all of those things that we've been championing people to do, not to tell them, hey, you're going to have to wait 4 or 5 years, or we don't know what we're going to do, or we're going to put you in the back of the line. So yes, that moment was a moment in infamy, but it brings us to the context, and some of the things that have been said here should inspire us to simply say, like Renessa, every day can be your last day. Every day can be your last day. To what Damon Green said, we're here for a short period of time. And we ain't even talking about faith here. We're talking about just whoever created us, we're only here for a short period of time. Life is like bingo. My first name is Chad. My last name is Lassiter. The first initial is C. The last initial is L. One day somebody is going to say, bingo, CL. Oh, no, no, no. I'm getting ready to celebrate my 50th or my 60th or my granddaughter's, but bingo. So I leave you with this as we open it up to the group. One speech I would love for everyone to invest your time in, because my sister Elaine Curry was getting to this, right? This is not a political thing that we did today, but what Elaine was talking about is America polices the world, but who polices America? And so I would love for some of us, if you want, to spend some time with Martin Luther King's greatest speech, Beyond Vietnam. Beyond Vietnam, a time to break silence. Beyond Vietnam, a time to break silence was Dr. Martin Luther King's greatest speech. The second thing I would love for you to do is for Gregory Holtz to send our Director of Communications that quote so that we can send it out to everyone. The third thing I want to do is end by simply saying that I knew that there was something special in Colleen after one conversation that she and I had where I shared with her that my very own father did 2 tours of Vietnam, was a decorated veteran, and Colleen and I agreed that we were going to move PHRC in a direction where we would acknowledge veterans and we would do things centered around veterans. Carl Summerson is a veteran. Sam Rivera is a veteran. We probably have other veterans. Some of us come from veteran families. So I just want to leave this space as I hand it back to our Director of Communications that we don't do anything at PHRC in happenstance. The challenge is that because people honestly don't want to look at what we're doing, they may figure, hey, what's going on here? Everything is done from a strategy, visionary, intentional manner. There was a reason for us putting this panel together with the people that we put here together, which was a diverse, eclectic group. And Colleen, when you get off of here, I don't know how this system works, but look at all of the accolades, all of the fine attributes of what people are saying to you in the chat. And for all of us, we're being called to a greater level of humanity at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. That we don't have to say, well, what if that was my mom or what if that was my family member? It doesn't have to be. We should be concerned with every single person that comes to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission because of all the things that the panelists said. Because in fact, no matter who we are in fact human beings who were not created by ourselves. And so, Laura, thank you for supporting this vision. It was less than a week and a half ago where I dropped this on the Director of Communication because it was dropped on my heart. Thank you, panelists. I can't say it enough. I am not only energized, I learned a lot from your perspectives. But I want to once again recap. If you have some time, read Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence. Gregory, please get us that quote. We want to get it out to all the staff of PHRC. We want to get it out to all the commissioners. And once again, we turn it back over to our Director of Communications. We have a little bit more time to maybe open up this beloved community for others who want to share briefly where they were, whatever narrative analysis or storytelling analysis that you want to share. But I am so very blessed to be here today, to have learned. And I think I will be a better person because of the panelists calling me to be a better person as a servant leader. Thank you, Laura.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you, all of you. I just echo those sentiments as well. This was very, very powerful. So we will open it up now. If anybody wants to chime in and add their comments, there's a lot of comments in the chat. I think we'll open it up though for verbal at this time. And I do want to say hello to Rachel. All of you, I think, or many of you have met Rachel now. And I don't know if you wanted to maybe start the public comments, Rachel. Do you have anything to?
Oh, sure. Wow, I'm just blown away. I'm so blessed to have witnessed and have just absorbed, and I think I'm still processing, metabolizing some of the really powerful shares. I am in southwestern Pennsylvania, so my experience, Vanessa, I related so closely to what you were saying about being so close and just that unknowing. I was home with my 18-month-old daughter. My son was in kindergarten. I was calling the school. So yeah, there's just so much. And I think one of the things that, was really present for me is how complex this story of 9/11 is. It's not a singular story. There's layers of complexity. And we can't put just a one label on what this story means to any one of us. I'm going to share a resource in the chat, a book called See No Stranger, a memoir of manifesto of revolutionary love, written by a woman named Valerie Carr, who started the Revolutionary Love Project after 9/11. She is a member of the Sikh community and saw members of her community murdered in the misguided name of patriotism. But she has a beautiful story of revolution, what it means to apply revolutionary love to our lives. So I'm going to put that in the chat, and hopefully that's something you can all peruse. Thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this discussion.
Thank you for being here and for sharing. Anybody else? Just go ahead and unmute.
This is Anthony White. I've just been sitting here listening to everyone, and it forced me to go back and think about where I was, what I was doing on Tuesday, 9/11. One of the things that, in listening to everyone, and Edie Lassiter alluded to it, that stands out to me, is that April 1st, 1967 speech by Martin Luther King. And I'm sorry for my fumbling earlier in the chat, but what I was really trying to say as a spinoff of that is a statistic that I got hold of when they were talking about the history of the United States. Now, comparatively, we are probably the youngest country out there compared to some of the other countries out there. And we've been in existence for about 246 years. 219 of those years, we've been at war. We've been at war. And we're sitting here right now, 20 years later, after a 2 decades war in Afghanistan. We're trying to get out of there. It doesn't look good, it doesn't look pretty. There's a lot of people that assisted our soldiers over there that are trying to get out to live a better life. This is still the greatest country on earth, but we have to do an introspective about our brand of democracy and what we're selling around. Because when we have a situation where people don't have homes, they're being discriminated against in areas of employment, education, home ownership, whatever the case may be, we're being watched all over the world. And one of the things that stood out to me recently was a meeting with China and Anthony Blinken. And China boldly stated to Anthony Blinken, who are you to tell us about our problems in our nation when you have people marching in the streets in yours? We're being watched, folks. Our brand of democracy, we've been trying to sell it all over the world for the last 246 years. And 219 of those, we've been at war. We need an introspective. This country needs an introspective. We need to take care of our own and take care of what's going on here before we try to sell our brand abroad. We need to be the shining example. And so far, I think we've somewhat failed at that. That's all I have to say.
Laura, if I can, this is Lyle. One of
Lyle.
the things that I wanted to talk about, especially when the beloved community was mentioned, was the quality of the PHRC staff overall. On 9/11, I was in the Pittsburgh regional office, and that's when we were in the old state office building. We were on the 12th floor and right in the flight path of anything coming down from that part of Pennsylvania. I remember, 20 of us were in the office at that time, and we were all crowded around one cubicle, looking on a little 8-inch screen, watching the first tower burn, and then watching the one flight hit the second tower, and then we knew what was happening. At that time, we couldn't get the ED. That was Homer Floyd. He was in a meeting somewhere. Our regional director was on leave. All the supervisors, with the exception of one, Terrence McDaniel, who was in charge, were on leave, and we're not knowing what to do. Terrence got us all together and said, we're all going out together. We're not going to stay here because we were in the flight path. We were part of the tallest building in that flight path, besides the steel building and the golf building. And I can remember us going from cubicle to cubicle, making sure that everybody was accounted for. And I can remember one person not wanting to leave because I think they were just kind of freaked out. And I remember one of my coworkers saying, you're either coming with us or I'm going to drag your ass down those steps. And I remember going to the stairwell, doing a head count, and Terry leading us out of there, down the steps and out of the building so we could evacuate. No one told him what to do. He made sure we were going to be safe, and he got us out of there. And I remember later on that evening getting a call from him, making sure that I was okay, that I had gotten home all right, and that we were all in good shape. And I think that again points out just the people you work with, you sit next to, who really some days you want to probably strangle the life out of them. But in the long run, it's a family. And in the long run, you know, I know when you go to supervisor school, they tell you have to love the people you supervise. And in a way, this is our family, and we love the people we work with, even though we don't always agree and we disagree a lot of the times. But I'll never forget, the time when everybody came together, made sure we were all safe, and then we had one person when we couldn't get someone to make a decision, lead us out of there and lead us out, to safety. And that's probably my one of my biggest memories of 9/11 was just how we all came together and looked out for each other, took care of each other.
Thank you. I think that's pretty much the name of the game. We have 1 minute. If anyone has one quick last minute bottom line they'd like to share.
Thank you everyone for your support. I normally am not a very blubbering person. It's just sometimes lately been crying like a little baby lately. So, but thank you everyone for your kind words and your support in me telling that story.
Colleen, thank you.
Colleen,
go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Mary?
this is for you. My father did 2 tours. His job was in the Navy, and he took soldiers to Okinawa, and the man beside him was killed by a kamikaze. So I do respect the military. Ambivalent about Vietnam many times. But the thing I wanted to share with you, if you ever want to talk, my aunt's best friend was a female psychiatrist, and she went home just in time, sadly, for the Khmer Rouge. And then we never heard from her again. So I thank you for being so open, and I'm a vault if you ever want to give me a call. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone who shared so honestly and openly. I think we all are coming away better people from this experience today and with a better understanding. And thank you to Executive Director Lassiter for having this vision and allowing us the time to spend this memorial together.
Thank you.
With that, everyone enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.